When you look at a plant, have you ever really stopped to think about what's going on inside? Today, we're taking a trip deep into that hidden world, from the tiniest sprout to the tallest tree, to uncover a true marvel of natural engineering. Okay, just think about this for a second. A giant redwood tree needs to get water from its roots all the way to leaves that are hundreds of feet in the air. And it does this every single day, silently, with no heart, no pump, and absolutely no electricity. So how does it do it? Well, that is the incredible journey we're about to follow. To get our heads around this, we first have to look at the plant's internal infrastructure. And honestly, the best way to picture it is as a brilliantly designed plumbing system. That's right, it's not just one system either. No, inside every plant, there are actually two different superhighways running at all times, moving all the essentials around to keep the whole operation going. So let's meet our two highways, the xylem and the phloem. As you can see, they look pretty different, and that's because they have very, very different jobs. Let's break down exactly what each one does. All right, so here's the breakdown. The xylem is basically the water elevator. It's a strict one-way street, only moving water and minerals up, from the roots to the rest of the plant. Its walls are super tough, reinforced with something called lignin. Now, the phloem, on the other hand, that's the food delivery service. It carries the sugars that the plant makes for food, and get this, it's a two-way street. It can send that food up or down wherever the plant needs it most. And what's really cool is how these highways are organized. They aren't separate. The xylem and phloem are bundled together, creating this incredible, continuous network that connects every single part of the plant, every root, every stem, and every leaf, making sure everything gets exactly what it needs to thrive. Okay, so we know the water's journey is a one-way trip up. So where does it all kick off? Well, for that, we have to go right to the beginning, deep underground. It all starts here, in the roots. And even more specifically, it starts with those tiny, almost invisible little threads coming off the main roots, the root hairs. These guys are the real front line of the whole water absorption operation. You might think they just sort of soak it all up, right? But nope, it's way more clever than that. The plant uses two really smart biological processes to pull in exactly what it needs from the soil. Let's follow the water for a second. It enters one of those tiny root hairs from the soil. Then it travels from that cell to the next and the next, kind of like it's being passed along a line. It keeps going until it finally reaches the xylem vessel right in the center of the root, where it's ready to start its long climb up. The main magic behind this is a process called osmosis. See, the inside of the root is saltier, or more concentrated, than the water in the soil. And because of that difference, water naturally wants to move from the less concentrated area, the soil, into the more concentrated area, the root. It just happens automatically, no energy needed from the plant. Pretty slick. But what about minerals? For those, the plant has to work a little harder. It uses something called active transport. This is kind of like pumping something uphill. The plant actually has to spend energy to pull mineral ions into its roots, especially when there's already a lot of them inside. This is how it makes sure it gets all the vital nutrients it needs to grow. So the water and minerals are loaded up and ready to go. But now comes the real challenge, getting that water all the way to the top of the plant, fighting against gravity every single inch of the way. It's not just one thing that does it. It's a team of three forces all working together. You've got a little push from below called root pressure. Then you've got capillary action, which is basically water molecules sticking to each other and to the sides of those narrow xylem tubes. But the real engine, the heavy lifter in this whole process, is the third force. This powerhouse is called transpirational pull. And the absolute best way to picture it is to think of a drinking straw. When you sip from a straw, you're creating a little bit of suction at the top, right? And that suction pulls the liquid up. Well, plants are doing the exact same thing, just without a mouth. Here's how it works. On the surface of leaves, there are these tiny little pores. When they open up to let carbon dioxide in, a little bit of water evaporates out. This process is called transpiration, and that evaporation creates a tension, a pull. And because water molecules are really good at sticking together, that pull is felt all the way down the xylem, creating one long continuous chain that literally lifts the water from the roots all the way up to the very top leaf. So, we've managed to get water up to the leaves. Awesome. But what happens there? Well, that's where photosynthesis happens. The plant makes its food. And now we have to switch gears and jump over to our other highway, the phloem.
So while the xylem is that one-way elevator just for water, the phloem is this super dynamic, two-way delivery network. Its whole job is to take the sugars made in the leaves and get them to all the other parts of the plant that need energy but can't make their own.
Now, in the world of plants, there are two key terms to know here. The first one is source. A source is simply any part of the plant where the sugar starts its journey. And most of the time, that's going to be the leaves, which are like little sugar factories. And the destination for that sugar is called a sink. A sink is any part of the plant that's either using energy to grow or is storing it for later. So think of things like growing fruits, new flowers, or even roots that are pushing deeper into the ground. And that right there is the genius of the phloem system. Because it has two-way traffic, the plant can intelligently redirect its energy supply. In the spring, it can send sugar up to help new leaves grow. In the fall, it can send sugar down to the roots to store for the winter. It's an incredibly smart and adaptive system.
So let's just quickly recap this whole amazing process. First, intake at the roots, using osmosis for water and active transport for minerals. Second, the big ascent, as water climbs the one-way xylem, pulled up by transpiration. Third, production, where leaves use sunlight to make sugar. And fourth, delivery, where that sugar is sent through the two-way phloem, from a source to a sink. It's a perfect, elegant loop. And when you really think about it, this whole silent, invisible system chugging away inside every plant, it's what powers nearly all life on Earth. It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other incredible natural marvels are out there, hiding in plain sight, just waiting for us to take a closer look?